Hey guys, Jasmine here from Feeling Nifty Painting Tutorials. Today you're going to learn how to paint a beginner level portrait with acrylic paints. I use black and white paints on purpose because I find it's easier for beginners compared to a full out color photo. So for the first step, we want to draw or sketch our portrait on our surface. Now you can definitely freehand it here, but I personally like to transfer it using carbon paper. I find this method especially good for beginners so you get all the proportions correct and you can focus more on the painting part. Then once you gain more confidence with painting and drawing, feel free to freehand your sketch. So to transfer the drawing, I use these carbon paper sheets. You can get them from Staples, which is where I got them from. I've also seen them being carried at Michael's and Amazon, so I'll add the link for the Amazon ones below. Now to use the carbon paper, put it dark side down on your canvas or paper. Then put your printed black and white photo on top of your carbon paper. Then use a sharp pencil to trace the outline of your photo. Now in this tutorial, I'm using a picture of Beyonce, who is one of my favorite singers and performers. The next step, once you've traced the outline of your picture, is to basically, you want to map out the different shades on the face. And this is going to make it easier to paint later on. Your face is going to end up looking a little bit like a map, but this is the look we're going for. So the next step, once we got our sketch completed, is to paint it in. Now you're going to start with your darkest color first. So for me, it's pure black. So I've added a little bit of Mars black on my palette, and I've used a small round brush, and I'm just basically filling in all the areas I've noticed on my actual photo that have this like dark color. So we want to start with the dark color and then basically move our way on up to the lightest color. Now this painting method was taught in my, I think it was grade 10 or grade 11 art class by my teacher, Mr. Ambrose. And pretty much everyone in that class most of us had never painted before. So this method it was wonderful because everyone ended up getting portraits that they were amazed with. So this is a great beginner level, a beginner style of portrait that anyone can feel success with. So here I'm just filling out all of the areas of black, which is a lot of Beyonce's hair, because the light is hitting down on the top, and then underneath there's a lot of shadows. So I'm just going to be capturing that with the black paint. And then also the sockets around the eyes have like that dark shade, and also the pupils and inside the eyes. And the nose, the nostrils, and then around the lips and inside the mouth as well. So you just want to take your photo and always have it there and just look at it for reference to see where your darkest colors are. Now for the next step, I'm going to lighten this black into like a dark charcoal gray, and then I'm going to do the same step. I'm basically going to notice in the picture where I have that dark charcoal gray color, and then just fill it in my painting. So for the photo I'm doing here, there's like her dress that she's wearing, her top that she's wearing, the collar, and then also the crinkles in her shirt have that dark charcoal color, so I'm going to capture those. So basically in this method, you're just going to be working from your darkest colors to your lightest. And you're just going to be using your reference photo to just notice where all the different shades of gray are. And you're just going to be, I find like it's a little bit like, what are they called? The paint by numbers. So essentially what we've done when we trace the pictures, we created all the areas that we want to paint in. And here's just noticing where those colors are and then just filling them in. And this is why I find this method is really good for beginners, the black and white, because I find in color pictures, it's harder to visually see as a beginner the different shades and tones of a full color spectrum. But when you put it in black and white, it becomes much easier to see those different shades and tones. And then once you've harnessed how to differentiate all those different shades and tone using a black and white picture, I feel like it'll be much easier to then see the different variations in a full color picture. So I'm still working with that charcoal gray color, and then once I'm done capturing all those details with the charcoal gray color, I'm going to be mixing an even lighter version of gray and then just continuing with that step. So here I'm filling in a little bit of the pupils and then her hair along her forehead. And here, yeah, I'm going to be mixing an even lighter gray here. So it's not going to be quite a charcoal gray here. It's going to be more of like a dark gray. And I'm just going to notice I have my reference picture at all times right beside my painting so I can visually see where all the different shades are. I find the hair takes a lot of detail and sometimes also requires a lot of fine brushwork. So another tip here is have a variety of different brushes that you can work with. So I find like the really finer tip ones, like size 1 round brushes, are really good for hair strands or even getting the outline around the eyes and the mouth and the nostrils and everything, just to have like a variety of brushes so you can get those really fine details. So I just wanted to mention also about the printed picture. So if you are working with a standard canvas size, like for example, 9 by 12, or even sheets of paper that are 9 by 12, 8.5 by 11, sorry, the easiest way to do it is finding your picture online and then using a photo resizing tool or even a tool like Canva, which is what I used, because I just simply printed this on a printer. That was like the cheapest way to do it, in black and white. So I just resized that photo that I found in Google Images, and then I used Canva, but you can use a photo resizing tool to print it on your standard printer paper. And that's why this method is also so versatile, because you can use your own custom picture. You don't have to use the one I'm using in the tutorial. But if you do want to use the Beyonce picture, I have a matching tutorial, a step-by-step tutorial on my website. So I'm also going to link that in the description below. And there you can find the full black and white picture for Beyonce as well. But feel free to use any picture you want. This method makes a great it makes for a really special gift idea for family and friends. And I find the nice thing with doing it on paper, so I'm using mixed media paper here because it's a little bit thicker and able to hold the acrylic paint, is that you can just easily frame it. So I just basically went to my local Walmart and got a frame for $20 and it looks fantastic. So that's another way to use your portrait, is you can give it as a gift idea, and if you want to frame it, then you could just use use a simple mixed media paper and just get any frame and frame it and gift it to your friends and family. So here I'm just showing a close-up view of the eyebrows, and I find the eyebrows can be a little bit tricky to do, and you want to make sure you have a really small detailing brush, like a size 1 or anything smaller than that, and try to get really nice upward strokes to follow the eyebrow. It's not just like a straight line. They're little, if you can see here in the close-up shot, it's a little bit wispy strokes going along the eyebrow. So the key with that is to use a smaller brush. So the essential anatomy of eyebrow hair is that eyebrow hair go in 3 different directions. So the eyebrow hair that starts at the bridge of your nose, those ones go point upwards. And then as you move from your bridge of your nose to the highest point of your eyebrow arch, those hairs are pointing from left to right, kind of at an angle. And then from the arch all the way to the lowest point of your eyebrow, those hairs are pointing downwards. Now I got these tips from a great blog post on how to draw eyebrows, and it's from Rapid Fire Art, so I'm going to include her blog post in the description below. So now I'm going to share some tips on how to paint realistic looking eyes. So there are 6 main areas to an eye: the eyelids and crease, the whites of the eyes, the iris, pupils, the highlights or light reflections in your eye, and finally the eyelashes. Now for your eyelids and crease, there should be shadows around the eye to make it look like they're dimensional and they belong on the face. There should be shadows around the eyelid, under the eyelid, and around the corners of the eyes. Now for your whites of your eyes, that's simple. Use pure titanium white to bring the whites of the eyes out. Now for the iris, to get a natural looking iris, You want to make the shade in a circular shape that gets lighter towards the center where it meets the pupil. Now for the pupil, those are simple. Those are pure black. So you can use pure Mars black right out of the tube and just paint a simple circle for your pupils. Now for the light reflection and highlights that make the eye shine and sparkle, use pure titanium white out of the tube to really make them pop. Now finally for the eyelashes. So eyelashes have a lot of variety that should start quite thin near the inner corners of the eye, and then they get thicker as you move towards the outer corners. And you want to try to fan the eyelashes outwards instead of going straight out of the eye. Remember also that there's eyelashes on the top and on the bottom of the eye. Now I got these tips from wingedcanvas.com, and I'm going to link that fantastic blog post below. I also want to mention that I decided to speed up most of the steps in this video because this painting took me a very long time to do, I think around 3 hours. So just for your convenience, I kind of sped everything up. But if you do want to slow some of the steps down just to see what I'm doing, you can actually choose, there's a YouTube setting that allows you to choose a slower playback speed. So you can always do that if you want to slow down some steps. So now I want to share with you some tips to how to paint realistic hair. So tip number 1 is start with everything being darker than you want it to be in the end. Tip number 2 is don't paint too much detail and texture in the darker shadows. If you paint too much detail in the shadows, the hair might end up looking like spaghetti or noodles. So keep the shadow area unified with minimal information. Instead, save your texture and detail for the highlighted part of the hair to let the viewer's eyes focus on the areas of light. And the final tip is to avoid a wig-like effect, soften the edges where the hair grows out of the scalp by using a blending brush and a color that's between the hair and the skin tone. Don't paint, so at these edges where basically near the forehead, the temples, and even the nape of the neck, don't paint individual hair strands there either, just a soft blended look. And I got these tips from the schoolofrealisticart.com, so I'm going to post that wonderful blog post in the description below as well. So the next thing I wanted to share tips on is how to paint the lips and the mouth. Now the mouth personally was the trickiest part for me for this portrait. I feel like there's so many subtle lines in the lips, and making them look realistic took me time. So here are my lessons learned and general tips. So number 1 is the mouth is one of the few areas of the face that actually contain a line. So the part between the lips is the line, and this line is usually not straight. So it may go up and down at the corners, and it actually might be also wavy too. Tip number 2 is the subtle depression between the nose and the upper lip is called the philtrum. So to make your portrait look realistic, you want to add shading and highlights to this area. Tip number 3 is paint the upper lip darker than the lower lip. Although the upper lip and lower lip are the same color, this helps differentiate between the two lips and adds the illusion of depth. And then tip number 4 is within the lips there are small lines and grooves. But these are very subtle though. So to help define the roundness of the lips, shade each lip with up and downward curves and brushstrokes, opposed to painting side to side. If you want a summary of all these tips, the ones for painting realistic eyebrows, eyes, and hair, I'm going to include that in the blog post for this tutorial. I now want to share with you some of the different ways you can vary the styles you can do with this portrait painting technique. For example, if you're just starting out and you're intimidated with adding too much detail or creating too many different shades of gray, just start out with 4 to 5 total shade variations only, and paint them in bigger and less detailed areas. While this might not result in a complete realistic looking portrait, it has its own unique style and is much easier and less intimidating for beginners. As an example, this is my first portrait painting I did in my art class in grade 10, and you can see here the areas are far less detailed, but it still looks good. To pull it all together, let's summarize this portrait painting technique. So step 1 is sketching your portrait with a pencil. You can either freehand it or trace it in with carbon paper. Step 2 is trace all around the different areas of shades on your portrait. Your portrait will end up looking like a map at the end of the step, but this is going to actually help you in a later step painted in. Now step 3 is start painting in with your darkest shade, which can be black or a dark shade of gray. Use your reference picture in the step to locate the darkest areas on your picture. Step 4 is mix the next lightest shade with your black and white paints. Again, use your reference photo to fill in the areas. Step 5 is repeat mixing lighter and lighter shades of gray and fill them in appropriately. You want your very last step to be with the lightest color, which will be close to white or even white. So you want to reserve the lightest colors for the areas of highlights on your face. So that can be the center of the nose, the top of the cheekbones, the top of the hair, the sparkle in the eye, and so on. Step 6 is take a step back and see if there's any areas you want to rework or adjust. Now, step 7 is the most important, which is signing your masterpiece with a grateful heart and being proud you made this portrait. Making a portrait and painting the human face is one of the hardest elements to paint, so you should be proud of making it.